Today on the show, we're going to talk about Beauty and the Beast. Why? Because I finally saw it. All this and more on What the Hell Did We Just Watch? Welcome to another episode of What the Hell Did We Just Watch? I'm your host, Lumotional Lou, and this is the show that helps spread movie awareness and also TV awareness. But this week, we are going to talk about what the continuation of one of my past episodes was, which was called That Beauty and the Beast Dilemma. And so, without further ado, here it is, Beauty and the Beast.
Who's there? Come into the light. Some way to break the curse.
Now, I thought the movie was actually good. It wasn't great. It wasn't grand, but I think it was good. It was a remake that I didn't think it was necessary, but I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was really cool to see a live action version of it, of the Disney animated version of it, because that's what it is. This is a Disney animated version of Beauty and the Beast that was remade into a live action Disney Beauty and the Beast. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, believe it or not, Beauty and the Beast was not created by Disney. Very little was actually created by Disney in the early days. They usually just take stories that have already been made and they Disneyify it, for lack of a better word. And they just make musicals about it. But, Little Mermaid is not an original story. Sleeping Beauty is not an original story. None of these, Snow White, all that stuff is all taken from books, from very morbid books, actually, to tell you the truth. They're not taken from very happy books. And, you can take a look into the history of all these kinds of stories that they've taken, and then you'll see that they're actually a much more safe, clean, fun version of these very serious stories, and morbid and kind of creepy at times too. Especially The Little Mermaid. It's kind of fucked up how that movie, how that book actually ends, as opposed to how the movie, does it. There isn't very much to say other than the fact that if you grew up watching this film, you know what to expect, for a majority of it, and I know for a fact that a lot of people, I'm just going to get straight down to it. I'm not going to speak about what the movie's about. It's a tried and true story of an unoriginal story, and Disney just made the most perfect version of it, to most people's eyes. I guess in my eyes too. Beauty and the Beast has been, like I said, remade so many times. There's, it goes back to the 1940s, if I believe. There's a black and white 1940s version of it. There was a TV series that was in the 80s that I remember with it that has Ron Perlman in that film. If you know who Ron Perlman is, he's Hellboy. He was the one that played the Beast on the TV show. There's even a TV show out now, or finished now. I'm not really sure. It was okay. I wasn't really stuck into it. I never watched continuing after season 1, actually. I know that it went to like 4 or 5 seasons, but it was like a sleeper show that played in the most random time that I didn't care for, and it wasn't even that good of a story. Whatever it was that they were modernizing it. It wasn't really the same thing. They just modernized it and whatever. So there isn't much, to talk about when it comes to like the what we all know. The film was good on that, but the thing is that it's good for what it is because they took from a script and from a score that works. They didn't change it. Even the fact that the trailer to the original film, the way that it was taken, like, look at it. It was the exact same trailer from the first, animated, movie when it was released back in the early 90s. So they knew that the way to get to our hearts and into our minds was to literally recreate the exact same fucking thing. And that has its, like, con qualities to it. There's, and I like using con qualities because it was quality, because they know they made something good earlier. But is it the answer to just literally remake the entire fucking thing, shot for shot? Come on. And I guess it works. There's a formula. They know what the fuck they're doing, and they know why they're doing it that way. And look at the way it is now. Look at the box office. It worked for old fans, and for the old fans to bring in the new fans, to make new fans out of the series, whether or not they've seen the cartoon or not. That are us as adults. Have we shown it to our kids before the movie came out, or did we show it to them? It's what are you gonna do? One thing that I will say before I start talking about the new stuff, because there isn't, like I said, there isn't much to talk about the old stuff. We all know it. It's tried and true story. But one thing I will say is I want to thank Disney for trying their hardest and succeeding in bringing back musicals back into their stories, into their movies, cartoons, what have you, because thank you to Frozen, which was a good film, in and of itself, of what Disney does. I love Frozen. I think the music is fantastic. The story's great. And they took a risk with Frozen, and they said, let's make more musicals. And look at that. We're back into the musical era of Disney animated features, and also bringing it into the live action foray. I still think that they could have tried to make an actual movie without the musical, even, because we already have the musical. Why should we have gotten it again? But they went that route, and it's music that works. It's all good, and there you have it. I mean, we're all mostly satisfied for what it was. I still hold it as an unnecessary remake, but nonetheless, it was still fun to watch. It was still fun to get on that bandwagon. So I think with that, we can also just thank you, Disney, for the musicals and bringing it back, because I am a big fan of musicals, and you will see that I am a big fan of musicals in future episodes of this podcast, given that you don't skip these musical episodes, because trust me, man, musicals are fun and they're good. There's music on them, the singing and all that. I'm a big sucker for that stuff. I love it. But now we can talk about like the new stuff that was in the film that I thought was good. I actually can tell you this. Every single thing that they added or changed to the movie, I actually liked them all. They were all good, and let's get started with the fact that there's new music into the film. I love that. Whether it was added for the movie specifically, or they took in some of the cut out songs that were in the film, originally, in the cartoon originally, that were cut out for whatever reason, time, or, maybe the song wasn't, for the moment or whatever. But all the things that they added, fantastic. I actually like all the new songs. They were great. It fit right in. It didn't feel like they were forced in there at all. I can actually say that for everything that was new in this. The new scenes that were completely original to the film, I thought worked great. The way that they added how the characters look as opposed to how they look like in the cartoon, I think it works way better, especially with the Beast, the guy that played the Prince, how he had the accurate look of that era with the makeup and having like these costume parties and all that stuff. I thought that was great. I love the fact that all the people that were in the party, they were all cursed, and the film actually shows us a reason why they were all cursed. And I think that's fantastic. I think that works great as well. And it makes sense why they all would get cursed. Cartoon, you really as you get older, you kind of question, why the hell did all of them get in trouble and turn into furniture? And him turn into a beast. In this film, they all kind of go with him, the prince, and anything that he finds hilarious or silly or condescending, they all would laugh with him and be like that. So in a way, in the film, they all kind of learned their lesson, and I thought that was fantastic. The dynamic about Gaston, I actually thought was one of the greatest things about the new edition of stuff that was in the film. That was opposed to the cartoon. And the reason why I'm saying is that Gaston in this one was meaner. And I think that's where the compensation of over-exaggeration that Gaston is. Because he wasn't very over-exaggerated in this film. A lot of the things that were over exaggerating in the cartoon, which is supposed to be, because that's how cartoons are made. They're supposed to make their characters kind of larger than life and kind of like just be over the top, and it's fine, and you accept it, and that's fantastic. That's totally fine, because that's how cartoons are. But when they toned it down, they needed to, since they were using real people, they can't have these characters be over the top, because then it would just make the film just plain silly. And I'm sure that you listeners can agree with me with that. Now, back to Gaston, what I was saying is that they made him like a murderer in this film. And what I mean by a murderer, like he was getting ready to, and I'm sorry for spoilers, but I think that if you're listening to this show, you've already seen it. The movie's been out long enough. You know what I mean? So just bear with me. Gaston literally was going to murder Belle's father. You know what I mean? That was what they were like doing, instead of like doing the insane asylum thing, which they still kind of alluded to that later. But before they did that, they added a scene where he was going to kill Belle's father, because if Belle wouldn't be with him, then he wasn't really going to care, because it shouldn't be so hard. He's gorgeous. That's the way that's the way he sees himself and all that. So he just like took it out on her father. And I thought that was great. He like tied him to a tree and like left him to be eaten by wolves. And it came to bite him in the ass later in the story, because he was being accused of attempted murder, and everyone was about to kind of like, ostracize Gaston for it. But then he flipped it around and claimed that Belle's father was a psycho and that he should be committed. And there you go, that he was going to go to that. Now, the major part of the elephant in the room in this film, when it comes to new stuff, is LeFou. Now, I've heard, lots of shows, podcasts and all that, and people were saying, oh, I didn't even notice. What is, I didn't understand that, after the fact of watching this film. Because, yes, it wasn't there, but there are 3 major scenes that are in this film that you can't say, oh, I didn't even realize it. Like, then you're not paying attention. Because I think that the reason why this character was put in there and made to be homosexual is for you to notice it, not for you to not notice it. So, I think that people mentally got it wrong, and I am not bothered by it. Before I start talking about what I'm going to say, I'm not bothered by it. I'm not bothered by the changes. Very little offends me, if not nothing really offends me, because people just do things in poor taste, and I just kind of like discard it. But I don't really get offended by anything, So LeFou is openly gay in this film. He doesn't say, yes, I'm gay, because we don't need to be there anymore. We don't live in a world where they have to be identified. But there are key scenes that elude him, and it's not in secret. He's gay. The way he held Gaston in one scene, the way that he is dancing with a female and then gets thrown into a man and puts a smile on his face, that right there is there. And even some of the times when he's talking and kind of the way that he's carrying himself in the story, he is gay. And for people, I believe it's kind of like reverse. If you say that it didn't bother you or you didn't even notice, then I think that's bad. I think you should have noticed it, and because that was what the character was. They weren't doing it in secret. The film doesn't show it that it was doing it in secret, and it wasn't really underlining either. It's just that we don't live in a world where homosexuals are typecasted anymore, and they got to kind of like be flamboyant. He was very regular, and there were times where he was a little bit, and that it showed, and that's fine. And not even that. There's another gay character in this film that is the person that dances with him, because we see that in the earlier part of the film that he acknowledges that he is a homosexual as well. So there you go. So for people to kind of say that they didn't notice it or they didn't think it was a big deal, then I think they have it backwards with that, because it was, Disney came out before the film came out and said LeFou is a homosexual. And the reason why they did that is because there's no way that you're going to double guess it, or you're not going to like guess it that it is, because it wasn't even for guessing. It was literally right there. He's gay. You know what I mean? So, and that's great if you ask me. So please acknowledge it is what I'm saying. Like, don't say that. And then on top of it, my other kind of like beef that I have with certain people that have been on the show, maybe they're trying to like, you know, be safe or something, but to say something stupid like and say, I thought LeFou was always gay from the cartoon, then that's complete utter bullshit. So we're expecting to think now in this millennial age that if someone looks up to someone, he's gay or she's gay. What do you know? Hello, LeFou was a inferior person next to his best friend Gaston. Are you going to tell me that people aren't jealous or wish that he had that? He was completely the opposite of what Gaston is. You know, Gaston was a large, beautiful, handsome man with muscles, and every woman was falling on his feet. LeFou was a short, overweight, buck-toothed character that couldn't even, you know, play in the same sport as Gaston. So what other person would he be behind his friend Gaston and not look up to him, so to speak? Like, that's called admiration, maybe a case of jealousy, like of wishing that he looked like that. That's what Gaston's character is, because Gaston treated him like shit. And even in this film, he treated him like shit too. So there you go. That's what he is. He's a person that looks up to Gaston, not a person that was gay earlier. If you have that kind of confusion where people are confused, it's like, so you don't understand, you know, when someone looks up to someone versus someone that is a homosexual, then, you know, I think that you got your fingers, your wires crossed or something like that, you know. So that was what it was in the original cartoon, and the difference of what it is now. He has a crush on Gaston as opposed to looking up to Gaston. Okay, that is what is the difference between the two. So, and then it's even worse for you to not acknowledge the fact that he's homosexual, because that's why he was there. It's not something to be like, oh, that was nothing, I didn't even notice. Like, dude, there's no way that you could, unless you slept through it or you went to the bathroom or something, to not see these scenes. But they're open and they're there, and that's fine. But it's gonna take, it is a big deal. In a way, not to me, but it is a big deal. It is something that is suggestive and subjective to show anybody that is a little bit on the fence about their children seeing that on screen. You know, most of the time, I'm going to be honest with you, if it's below the age of 10, they're not going to notice what the hell is going on. But we're talking about the ages of 11 to about 15. Do you want your kids to see that so early? Or, I mean, maybe by 15 they're seeing it, but let's say 11 to 13. You know, those 2 years are a big difference. 2-3 years are a big difference. 10 to 13 years old, actually. And are you going to be happy, or will you question if your kids should watch that? You know, we're still shielding them from things to see. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's just the way it is. We don't see those kids. We try to make sure they don't see sexual behavior in films. I mean, we get away with watching characters kiss, a heterosexual couples kiss. It's a different story, because I have to say this, we're not the millennial type people around our age range. I'm 37 years old, and I'm comfortable with it because I know how to adjust to time. But I excuse and understand why people my age or a little older are a little bit reluctant to show that. We don't come from an era where we're seeing that on TV. We weren't watching that. And homosexuals were not, they were typecasted. That's what I'm trying to say. They were the best friend. They were the guy living in secret. They were the guy that moved away from their family so they can be who they wanted to be. And that's the reason why I believe that they should not be looked at as like, oh, I didn't even notice. So have a little bit more respect, because it was noticeable. They did it. They made sure they did that. Disney came out and said that, look, this is what's here, you know, to kind of tell parents, hey, if you don't want to take your kids to see it, then, you know, we understand, kind of thing. So have a little respect, acknowledge that it was there, but move on from it, because that's what we're supposed to do. You know, but I think that's about it about Beauty and the Beast, the film. And I wanted to segue into the just one little question that I had to myself that I wanted to ask you guys out there. And I basically wanted to ask this one question. Is this remake necessary? Was this remake necessary? Because they took from a story that already works. They took from a story that even they decided to make the exact same trailer to the cartoon trailer that we had before. So was this trailer, I mean, not trailer, but was this movie necessary? You know, and the way that I think about it is that I don't think so, because I feel that if something works and that if something is a story's fine, then however which way it's told, I don't believe that they should redo it. Like, I know that it's for an updating reason and all that, but I also disagree with that, because I believe that in order for us as people that love to watch movies the way that we want to, and I think that we should watch the way it was done before, mistakes and all, or flawed and all. You know, I when it comes to remakes, not reimagining or adding things like the way George Lucas did, that's a completely different thing. That's not the same. When it comes to remaking a story that works, then why remake it if the story is fine? And granted, I did like the brand new stuff they added on the show, in the movie. I like the new songs. I love the character development that it was in there. Anything that was brand new, I did like. Don't get it twisted. But at the end of the day, we got the exact same story. That whether they put it in or not, it wasn't going to change the fact that it's one of the most popular stories told that Disney has ever made, you know, live action or not. And I just think that if they just keep putting out the cartoon, which they have, because every time they release a new their old cartoons, every so often, they sell like hotcakes no matter what. Every time they sell like hotcakes. They are big sellers all the time. You know, I know a lot of people that have every single Beauty and the Beast release since VHS. Okay, so look at that. I own plenty of different versions of a lot of these cartoons. Beauty and the Beast being one of them. I bought the last edition, the Platinum edition of Beauty and the Beast with the 3D and all that. And also now I bought the Signature series. Why? Because I'm an idiot. And there's not much that they added in there. It's just more for special features and all that stuff. And it wasn't really much. It's not like they changed the quality. It's still Blu-ray before. And if anything, I got less, because in this version, it doesn't come with the 3D version of Beauty and the Beast. I have it on the last one. The Signature series did not bring the 3D version. So in a way, I kind of lost, but I win. It's a new series, a new edition, I should say. And because Disney does that, and I'm stupid and I need to rebuy it, you know, and I'm going to keep doing it all the time. You know what I mean? I have 2 different versions of Pinocchio. I have 2 or 3 different versions of Dumbo. I have 2 different Sleeping Beauties. I got my Snow White for the first time. I'm not a huge fan, but I wanted to get. I told myself I want to start the Signature series and buy all this shit, you know. But hey, that's just the way it is. Disney, I hate you and love you at the same time. So thank you for that. But in terms of remaking live actions versions of their cartoons, is it necessary for some? Yeah. I understand why they're updating and they're doing, but I think Beauty and the Beast was the first one that we've gotten so far that I feel is unnecessary, because the story's tried and true. They didn't add much to it, even though I did like what they added to it, like I said. But they didn't add so much where it changed the story's dynamic. You know what I mean? They did change the ending slightly, which I did like a lot more. The way that they ended it, it was actually a lot cooler. And it had the same emotional heft, but it didn't make it necessary. Adding those things didn't make it necessary for them to say, we should remake it and change these things. And people like it a lot better. People loved it anyway. People loved it regardless. Adults were showing it to their kids, you know, and there you go. But the thing is that kids like seeing things new, and that's where Disney is in the right, and why they thought it was necessary for the new age to watch it in this way. So it's like, you know, because kids have this psychological thing that if it's old, it's not good, or if it's old, and they don't connect with it as much as we did when it first came out. Because think about it, when we were kids, it came out for the first time. You know, when they're watching old shit, and I know this, and I know that deep within your memory banks, listeners, that you guys have that same mentality. You're talking about the movies that came out when you were young. you can't force a kid to like, if they do, something that's old and see it like it's new, because it just doesn't work that way. My nephew saw Back to the Future. He loved it. It's not sticking. And I don't even think he'll ever watch it again. But if they were to remake it, maybe he would. Please, God, don't do that. Another unnecessary remake that we need. But if they remade it, he would connect to it a lot more. Just like the newer generation connect with the prequels a lot more than they do the sequels, because they're older and they're older looking. And even if they'll watch the stories, it's the new stuff. And then now there's a whole new generation that's going to like this new trilogy and they'll watch this trilogy way more than they do the past stuff. I know one person that does already. I know one person that's seen episode 7 a shitload more times, and I can honestly say that that person has seen any of the older ones ever. So, that's just the way it works. That's just the psychological factor of it. There is a psychological factor that works into making films and making them when they want to make them and for the reasons that they make them. Okay? So, you just got to swallow that hard pill. But I think I talked way too much about Beauty and the Beast, the actual film. And I think that, I should thank you guys, the listeners, for listening to this one, episode 52. And just coming back and having another discussion about this film. And now that I've seen it, because last time I didn't see it, and now that I've seen it, now we can elaborate more on it and talk about certain issues and certain things like that. So it was fun and it was great. And I would love to hear you comment, like, share about anything that I said on this show and anything that you want to make clear or light, show some light on any kind of topic that maybe I left out on this show. So you can do that by following on Facebook.com/WhatTheHellpcast, Twitter.com/TheHellpcast. You can do it also on Instagram.com/WhatTheHellpcast. You can follow me on SoundCloud. You can comment on SoundCloud. You can go on iTunes and search me there, on YouTube, and you just do What the Hell Did We Just Watch? And you could just search and listen to every episode that's on there and just keep making the show and give it life, you know what I mean? Because it starts with you guys and the audience, you know what I mean? So give a type there. Let me know what you think. Let me know how I'm doing, and because I love feedback. So if you can just do that, just follow me right there. You can also email me at whatthehellpcast@yahoo.com, and you can just leave a message there if you want to do it privately. I have no problems with that. So I guess that's about it. That's about a show. And I just got one thing to say. It's been Emotional.